that's why you didn't get the listing. If you're wondering, that's why, because you made a poor assumption because you didn't have enough information. If you had enough information to know that divorce was happening with a hoard or whatever, like you probably wouldn't have told them they were stupid. But whether you said it or you inferred it, like that's why you lost the listing. If somebody doesn't want it, then it's your job. Meet them where they're at. Like don't assume that everybody wants to put their house on the market. I think that's a false assumption that a lot of realtors make.
Kyle, today I want to talk about something that we don't talk a lot about. And there's been laws put in place to protect, in quotes, the consumer against this practice in ways. Today, I want to talk about pocket listings, and are they good or are they bad for both the real estate agent and the industry, as well as are they good or bad for the consumer? I want to talk about that on today's podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this because I don't do a lot of deals anymore, but I like to do a few deals so that I can keep my finger on the pulse and kind of feel, hear, experience the same thing that our agents are feeling, hearing, and experiencing. And I actually have two very recent examples of where this comes into play. So I'm excited to share these examples and how they dovetail, as our boy Barry Jenkins likes to talk about, how they dovetail into this pocket listing conversation.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, my name is Kyle Whissel with Whissel Realty Group here in San Diego.
Oh, you took a breath like you were going to go. My name is Bryan Koci, Director of Marketing here at Whissel Realty Group.
The goal of the show is to give you the tools, techniques, and tactics to crush it in your business. The way that we like to do that is to answer the questions that you have for us. So if you have a question, you can always go to thewhisselway.com. You can ask us questions on there, subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, join our private Facebook group, and get on our email newsletter where we share a lot of tips and tricks. You can get our referral network for all the outbound referrals we have from everybody leaving California. Hey, both of these clients are leaving California. Coincidence. So these are two referral opportunities. So get on that at thewhisselway.com. You can also get on our video content creation course where Bryan and I teach you everything we've learned about creating video content over the last 8+ years together. We'll shortcut that learning curve so you can get out there and start crushing it with content immediately. Thewhisselway.com.
I was just talking to one of our long-term subscribers, Ryan. Shout out to Ryan. And he was like, hey, finally I was able to take the course and kind of tweak it to what I was already doing and making that better. And once I had that kind of framework built, it was really easy to copy and paste it into my real estate business. And then he said he wanted to hire like 20 VAs. So that was a very different conversation. So
okay.
Yeah, that's that. Also, I did update the whisselway.com to make it easier and more pretty to ask a question on the show.
Beautiful. That's pretty, Bryan.
He hasn't seen it, but I hope he doesn't, because he goes, actually, you should move it down 3 pixels. And anyways, so today's conversation, we're going to be talking about pocket listing, Kyle. And here's the question that I came up with, and not ChatGPT. It was just me all by myself, is tell me about the use of pocket listings in the real estate industry. Are they a fair practice, or do they contribute to market inefficiencies and reduced transparency?
He totally came up with that.
All by myself. Just like, maybe I should ask that question.
All right, cool. So this will tie back to a quote that I've been like really loving lately. And it's from Darren Hardy. And it's everything makes sense if you have enough information. Everything makes sense if you have enough information. So there are times where people will be like, pocket listings aren't fair. Like, you should never do them. It's wrong. You screwed over the seller. Like, I mean, those are terms, right? Those that are on the bad side of pocket listings. Like, that's what people think.
Or screwed over the buyer.
You could screw over. I mean, yeah, there's
or the potential buyers, someone who wanted to buy it and didn't get the opportunity.
Which I think is where they came in with the clear cooperation thing came into play, which we can hit on that a little bit more. But at the end of the day, everything makes sense if you have enough information. And I think this is really good. I mean, I just finished up a tough conversation with one of our agents because there was something tough that happened over the weekend, but I didn't have all the information. And so I've been taking a few steps back, more than a step back, but sometimes a few step backs to gather more information so that I can try to understand why something happened, to see if it makes sense, right? Like, because if I have enough information, it makes sense. But if I jump to conclusions, which we do a lot in this industry, or shit, any relationships, those of you guys that are married, like we all jump to conclusions a lot. As a parent, you do, like, but if you don't have enough information, then things might not make sense. But when you gather enough information, they start to make sense. And so people will say like, pocket listings are bad, you're screwing people over. Like, well, let's talk. Like, one of my first exposures to a pocket listing, and this was one that the seller required me to do a pocket listing. Because now, one, people a lot of times assume that the agent is the one making that decision. No, you actually don't have enough information, because my first ever pocket listing that I met with the seller was literally running for public office, is running for state senator at the time, and said, I can't have this public. Like, I cannot have anybody knowing that my home is for sale while I'm running for office.
I would assume a majority of the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is my experience, at least here, almost all of the time it's seller requested.
No.
Interesting.
It's not.
I've always been under the impression it was seller requested for privacy reasons, right? That's an example. They're getting a divorce and they don't want their neighbors to know about it. That type of stuff.
There's absolutely seller requested reasons, and those are the few of them. You have the one where, it's a hoarder house, and people are like, hey, I don't want this public. Like, my neighbors don't know that I'm a hoarder, or as they often refer to themselves as collectors. Like, I don't want my neighbors seeing inside my house. I'm embarrassed by it. And people will admit this to you. I mean, like, I've talked about the fact I took so many psychology classes in college has really paid dividends, because sometimes as a realtor, we're a realtor / psychologist. Now I'm just more of as a team leader, more of a psychologist.
Is that the one that prescribes drugs? Is that
psychiatrist?
Okay.
We won't go there. So you need to know. I totally just lost my train of thought.
The more information you have, right, once you have enough information, everything makes sense.
Yeah.
People think that it's agent led, but sometimes
they think that it's agent led. Yeah, but the hoarder situation. So you could have somebody's hoarder that they don't want it to go public, but like, people are assuming, oh, you screwed that seller over because you didn't put their home on the market. They were freaking embarrassed to put their house on the market, and I've had sellers admit that to me. Like, that's fine. Like, hey, if that's where you're at, that's fine. I'm gonna meet you there, right? I'll meet you where you're at. And if you're embarrassed by your house and you don't want it to go public, like, that's fine. But other realtors say like, oh, you screwed them over, you're doing this. No, you just don't have enough information. If you had enough information, then it would make sense to you. And same thing, like you talked about the divorce one. I've had many of those where, it's two spouses are getting divorced, and they're tight with people in the neighborhood, and they don't want anybody in the neighborhood to know until the moving truck pulls up. Like, they don't want to tell people till they have to.
They don't want the rumor mill to circulate until they're gone. Fine, you guys can talk about me there, but not
absolutely.
Now.
And I've had countless other scenarios like that. So there's scenarios like that absolutely make sense, right? If the seller does not want it to go public, then so be it. But what happens is, I would argue, those of you that think it's wrong, I think you're wrong. Like, if you meet with a seller and the seller says, I don't want the home to go on the market, and your first reaction is like, what's wrong with you? Are you stupid? Like, don't you want to sell for the highest price? Like, you got to put it on the market. Like, that's why you didn't get the listing. If you're wondering, that's why, because you made a poor assumption, because you didn't have enough information. If you had enough information to know that divorce was happening with a hoarder or whatever, like, you probably wouldn't have told them they were stupid. But whether you said it or you inferred it, like, that's why you lost the listing. If somebody doesn't want it, then it's your job. Meet them where they're at. Like, don't assume that everybody wants to put their house on the market. I think that's a false assumption that a lot of realtors make. Gather the information and then make the recommendation. The same thing when you meet with, a doctor. A doctor is going to ask a series of questions and run a series of tests on you, and they're going to make a recommendation based on that. They don't just walk in the room and immediately tell you, look at you like, oh, flu. Like, they're gonna ask some questions and figure out what symptoms you're having. Like, they're gonna look at you.
Broken arm.
Yeah. Like, gather some information and it might make sense to you. So there's those situations. And then there's other situations where, you have somebody like this experience happened, and this ties a couple deals together. So recently I listed a home for the seller wanted 1.8 million. And I told him that was too low. I wanted to list it for 1.9 million. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so high. I'm worried we're not going to get it." I said, "Hey, I got you. Like, you have a special house. We're going to get you this number. I'm confident." We put it on the market, and we end up getting 6 offers, and almost all of them are in the uh let's see, 4 of them were at list, one was a little bit above list, and one was way the hell over the list price. Well, what happened in that scenario is that one person, bid a crazy number, got the house. 5 other people lost the house. Well, what happened to those 5 people? They're now going to see what number it closes at, which is a really high number. Like, this is one of the highest over list I've ever had in my career. It's more than $250,000 over list, just to give perspective on this. Now, those 5 buyers, when this thing closes, they're going to see the number that it closed at, and they're going to look back at their number and be like, "Damn, I was like over $250,000 off on that house." Well, what's going to happen the next time they get a crack at a house like that? They're going to be like, "Man, I better really step it up on this house." But then what if they got offered an opportunity? Let's say it was a model match house in the same neighborhood, the same house. They get another bite at the apple. They get another chance at their dream house. And now it's presented to them, and it's, "Hey, Bryan, we have a house. I know you guys were looking in the area, and, if you want, I can deliver this house, but you're going to have to pay a premium for it." So now not only are you going to have to pay what the model match just sold for, you're actually going to have to pay above that. But you might be willing to do that because when you missed out on that house the first time, that might not be the first house you missed out on. You might have missed out on 2, 3, 4, 5. We're getting into this market again. You might have missed out on 10 houses. If you now get a chance, this is the house, and you can get it if you pay a premium for it. You're basically paying a premium. Like, they do this on eBay. There's like, you could bid on the house, and there's a buy it now price. If you don't want to deal with the bid and wait the 6 more freaking days for the auction to end, there's a number, and it's a high number. You could go pay the number, and it's yours. It's done. It's over. Congratulations. You won the auction on eBay, or in this case, you won the house.
And on eBay, it might go. So the buy it now price could be $500, but it could get bid up to $750. So the buying it now doesn't mean you're paying the most. And I think that's exactly where you're getting. Doesn't mean you're paying the most. It just means you're locking it down at a price.
And it's yours.
Yeah.
It's done. And so there's a lot of buyers right now that are in that same mindset that will pay a premium to avoid having to go into a potential bidding war. Because that buyer just got in a bidding war and lost the house because somebody overpaid by $250,000 or more. What's to say this new house hits the market and somebody else doesn't come pay $250,000 over that, right? You just don't know. So what happens is buyers get to a certain point. They've been beat out so many times that they're like, "I'll do anything." Like, you literally tell me to, ask me to jump and I'll say how high. Like, there's buyers that get to that point. So there's a time and a place where it makes sense, even if a seller doesn't desire to do a pocket listing, that it might make sense to sell it off market, or it's still effectively a pocket listing at that point if it never goes public.
Yeah, pre-market. Yeah.
Right. So I had one recently where comps would say this house is probably worth 1.3. Like, if you ran the numbers on this, the comps say 1.3 million. And the seller told me, "Hey, we had this, couple that had come look at it and looked at this house, and they really want it." And I said, "Hey, you know what? If they'll pay 145 for the house, we should let's do this deal. If they'll pay 145, if they'll pay 150 over what the comps say your house is worth, do the deal." And went to the buyer, and buyer said, "All right, let's do it. Let's go." Because the buyer didn't want the house to hit the market. I actually had 2 other people who wanted to go see the house that were chomping at the bit to get it. Who knows what it could have got bid up to if we went on the market. So in that scenario, that buyer had probably looked at multiple other homes prior and got beat out over and over and over again. And there was this opportunity, and they said, "You know what? We don't want to lose this house. This is the one, and we'll pay a premium to get it." And they did. And now it made sense for that buyer. The buyer got what they wanted, and it makes sense for the seller because the seller got a premium. Now, could it have gone for more in the market? Maybe, but we will never know. But a bird in the hand is very, very valuable. And they got they got a number that was higher than what they were expecting. And at the same time, they didn't have to deal with all the uncertainties. They didn't have to deal with getting the house prepped and the showings and the open houses and who knows when an offer is going to come in and what are the terms of the offer. And right, like there's so much variability and uncertainty. So in my eyes, that's a win for both parties, right? The
100%.
seller got a premium over what the comps would say the home was worth, and they didn't have to deal with any of those headaches. On the flip side, the buyer got the house they wanted and didn't have to compete. Did they pay the buy it now price as opposed to the auction on eBay? Yeah, but they got what they wanted too. And in my eyes, that's a win-win. So, my personal opinion is I think that there, with enough information, it makes sense. And in that scenario, with that information, that deal makes sense because they don't want to end up in the scenario where, like the other deal where it got bid up $250,000, because that could happen too.
Yeah, and different people, certainly that peace of mind. I know I sold my house when Zillow was buying houses at ridiculous prices. Thank you, Zillow. I know I've sold one house and it was very easy, and I'm terrified to ever sell another house because it was very easy. Literally, like you said, didn't have to do open houses, didn't have to show. I mean, having the house show ready. We have 2 little kids now. We have a
48
cat.
cats.
We have a cat, and having it perfect every day. My aunt who lives with us, she goes, we have a cleaning lady that comes every 2 weeks. And she goes, how does the house get destroyed the same day the cleaning lady comes? She comes in the morning, we get home at night, and she goes, there's stuff everywhere. So having to deal with that and keeping it clean, and someone calls, say, hey, can we show it at 2 o'clock? Dude, I'm at work. No, like I can't clean up now. There's definitely that stress that we don't have to deal with, which is phenomenal. All right, so you said there's 2 deals. By the way, Tom, remind me, we're not doing photos for Kyle at all this year. We're not going to do any listing photos because I'm sure we did the listing photos and then it went off market probably. So just remind me, make him get it off market before we take photos. So that was one deal.
Well, I tied both together there, right?
Okay.
I tied the one that did go to the market that went more than $250,000 over, and then I tied it to one that didn't go to the market, right? That went 150 over. So I tied those both together for you.
So give me one sentence. Pocket listings, they're good or they're bad?
Everything makes sense if you have enough information.
So tell me, just
I
in 2
think
minutes.
if it makes sense, right, with the right information, it does make sense, and it's a good thing, and it can be a good thing for both parties.
Tell me in situations where you see agents, and I'm confident they're not working here. I'm confident it's not you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked this question.
Right. So there is a place where it can be bad. So
tell me
the
that.
answer, I guess, the answer is, are pocket listings good and bad? They're both.
Yeah.
Right. There's absolutely scenarios where people get screwed. Like there's for sure there's scenarios where, agents who are not of high standards and ethics that would come in and see an opportunity to make 2 commissions and, get a deal done. And they're maybe not doing what's best for the seller or the buyer or both. Like there's that scenario where they take advantage of a seller. Like I've absolutely seen that happen. And then this is where it ties into it could be bad too, because the whole reason clear cooperation was put into place was that deals were happening like that and buyers weren't getting a fair shake, right? There's other buyers who probably would have paid more money, but they never got a chance at it because the deal got done off market at, below market rate. And so a lot of buyers were complaining about it, and sellers were complaining because there's deals that would get done where, an agent would convince a seller to sell a property, and then somebody would buy it and somebody else would go tell the seller, like, hey, if you would have told me you were going to sell, I would have paid way more money than what you sold it for. Like, why did you sell it so low? Like that was happening. And so those sellers would get upset. They would complain. So you had buyers complaining they didn't get a chance at the deal. And then you had sellers complaining that some agent took advantage of them and sold their deal off market for below market rates. And some buyer was willing to pay them way more than what they sold it for. So I think there's absolutely scenarios like that where it is bad and it doesn't make sense. But there's situations where it can be good too. So I think when done right with the right information, they do make sense, but there's absolutely agents who abuse pocket listings and are not looking out for the buyer and seller's best interest. They're looking out for their own interest and thinking like, oh, I could do this thing off market and make 2 commissions, or I could save money and not have to, spend it on marketing. Like there's for sure, there's going to be agents who, can turn this into something that is solely in their best interest and not the client's.
And I think the way you handle that is make sure you're giving the client all the information. So I know as you invest in properties, you buy properties. This happened again with someone I know. Is is you say, hey, look, there's 3 options. Your house needs some work before you have 3 options. It needs work, right? Either 1, I'll buy it at 60 cents on the dollar. Don't think it's a great option, but if you need cash in 3 weeks, I got you. 2 is you work with this process. They'll do it, whatever. They'll flip your house and renovate it and then sell it. But you need someone to stay for 2 months while they renovate it, and you got to carry those costs, and and then you can get 120 cents on the dollar. That's not right.
It's fine. Just keep going.
Well, I guess it's the same thing. Or option 3 is you list it as is, but people are going to see your house, the quality it's in, and yeah, you'll get fair market. But you already mentioned that that's not what you want to do because you're not proud of where your house is at. So I think being where people can make it really bad is they don't give that transparency and go, yeah, your house is pretty rough. If you're lucky, you'll get this. I'll give you this right now if you want. I don't think you'll get it and take advantage of those people without giving them the options.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it can get really bad, and where I think we do a good job, because I've seen it firsthand of, these are your options. I will do whatever one you want. I don't think me buying it is the best thing for you. Like, it's 60 cents on the dollar, but I'll do it if that's what you need. So I think that's where I think we do a good job with handling clear cooperation, and clear cooperation had to be put in place because I don't think a lot of people were.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and then our contracts, here in California, obviously we're one of the most litigious states in the country. There's very clear sections in the agreement too that make sure a seller is aware, if you do not put your home on the market, like, here is the potential risk. You're not getting full exposure, blah blah blah. Like, so there's a very clear section outlined to make sure we bring attention to our sellers of, like, look, if you do, there are potential risks with selling a home off market. So California has made it very clear too, to make sure to try to prevent the agent who is not looking out for the client's best interest, by making sellers very aware of the risk of selling off market.
Is clear cooperation just a California thing?
No, it's NAR. It's national. Yeah. So as at least my understanding is it's nationwide. So that was put in place to try to prevent people from being taken advantage of. And I have no problem with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we play by the rules. But it does pay to be a part of the biggest brokerage in the county, because we are allowed to share off-market opportunities within our brokerage completely legally. And I think I shared this already as a widget of the week, but I'll just mention it again. Like, there's a really cool tool. We'll give a shout out to our friend Shane at Raven, raven.re. They have a really cool product that allows you to share off-market opportunities within your team or your brokerage, and stay within the clear cooperation policy. So, here locally with EXP in San Diego, we have, hundreds or maybe even a few thousand agents. I think we're up to a few thousand EXP agents in San Diego now. We're allowed to share our new listings within our EXP network, because we're all within the same brokerage, which is really cool. So that's, check out raven.re. Is a really cool product that can help you in your local market within your brokerage to share some of these opportunities.
And it's so much better organized than we've done in the past. We used to have a Facebook group and we would post stuff, and then we had a Slack channel. We say, hey, this is happening, and then it wouldn't happen, or hey, does anyone know something? And it was just such a mess. And you're like, did this already? You would respond to something from 3 months ago, and they're like, dude, that's sold. I don't know what you're talking about. And so this is not a Raven, you are not our widget of the week this week, but
we've already been our widget of the week, but we'll give you a plug because it ties perfectly into this.
Excellent. Let's get into it.
Sweet. So I hope you guys got a lot of value out of that. If you did, if you are watching on YouTube, if you could hit the thumbs up button, let YouTube know you're enjoying the content, that is greatly appreciated. If you have a question, throw it in the comments section. Bryan and I personally respond to all of those comments that get posted. And if you want more of our content on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell. And if you're on a podcast platform, if you can make sure subscribe to the podcast, and then if you could write a review. Those reviews are extremely difficult to get on podcast platforms. As a result, they go a really long way. So if you could spend 5 minutes and just write a review about, whether it was this episode or a previous episode that really benefited you and your business, and if you could write a review, that just means a lot to Bryan and I, and it's greatly appreciated in advance. Before we wrap, what we like to do is share something that we utilize in our business that saves us time, makes us more money, or helps us have more fun in the industry. We refer to this as the Whissel widget of the week. What do you got for us, Bryan?
My widget is for those agents that have a team, whether big or small, and that care about consistency in their brand look. I can't tell you how many times I communicate with people over email and see, and I'm sure you guys see it as agents a ton more, and you'll see emails coming from the same company and every single one looks different. And we use this tool called Xink, Xink.io. And what it allows us to do with our G Suite is connect all of our users into our Gmail, and we can have all of our email signatures look exactly the same. And so exactly the same with variety. So where, I mean, you have the same layout, but I can have your photo for you, my photo for me, right? And it's really nice. It's really seamless. Another really cool thing about it, the reason why we went with this, one is it makes a better onboarding experience. So we don't have to say, okay, copy this and change your phone number here. And that's not a great onboarding experience. But two is, as we have opportunities that we want to update to our entire database to everyone we're sending an email to, we can update our email signature. Maybe we're representing a new listing or a new product that we want to share with everyone. Maybe we have a new USP, a unique selling proposition that we want to share with everyone, or we updated it to where, hey, we're looking to join our team is growing. Let me know if you want to join our team. We can update that really easily with literally at this point a click of a button or two, and make sure our company-wide communication is going out consistently to everyone.
I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. The one I want to share, we travel a lot, and one of the biggest pain points in travel is renting a car. It sucks. Anytime you rent a car, one, you have no idea what kind of car you're renting. Like, you don't know if you're going to get a Honda Civic or a Chevy Suburban, right? Like, you literally don't know what you're going to get. You get to the counter and they just like pull keys out of a hat, and that's what the car that you get.
Find it.
But the counter at the rental car terminal is like, I don't know about you, but every time I go, it seems to take a half hour every time. And then you get there and somebody just keeps like pecking away at this keyboard. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I reserved the car. Give me the damn keys. And they just sit there.
Yeah.
What the fuck is happening right now?
They're coding
like,
a website.
I wish I could see the other side of the fucking screen. Like, what are we doing for 30 minutes?
Yep.
Like, it
You're
is
right.
the most ridiculous, antiquated process. And I understand there's some companies that have made this a little bit better, but it's just overall, it's a shitty experience. And so
You are adamant about this, man.
I
You
am.
are
If-
amped.
I got screwed on one recently. So we use the solution to this is called Turo, Turo. I love Turo, and it's effectively like a Airbnb Vrbo kind of thing for cars. So you could put your you don't have your Fiesta anymore, but you could put your Ford Edge on there. And people can rent your car directly. Right? It's peer to peer. So the one time I ever had an issue with it was literally while we were on the plane, that particular vehicle got recalled. Like, it was a big safety recall. So our Turo got canceled while we were in the air flying. And so we're like, there was just not enough time to rebook a Turo because we literally landed and found out it was canceled. And it was not Turo's fault or the owner's fault. It was Ford's fault because it was a piece of shit.
Don't get me started.
So we got stuck having to rent a car. It was awful. Like, it took so damn long to rent a freaking car. It was terrible. So we use Turo all the time. And every time I use Turo, some owners actually will like want to meet you at the curb. Like, when you're renting and you're flying in, they'll literally just meet you curbside. Like, here's a car. And they have like, you know, a friend or family member follow them in a second car. Or I actually prefer the ones that don't do that. I prefer the ones that just park the car for you. Like, hey, car's in space 57 on the 3rd floor. And just some of them have like a lockbox on the door. Some of them have like a keypad. And some of them, they're like, just shoot me a text when you get there and I'll unlock it remotely. And you literally just walk up, open door, and drive away. Like, done. It's so easy. Take a couple pictures of the car, like for damage waiver and stuff, and you're gone. And then when you're done, you just pull up, park the car, take a picture, tell the owner, hey, it's on the 4th floor, space 72. And they're like, all right, bye, thanks. And you're done. Like, it's so freaking easy. And you know exactly what car you're getting. There's no mystery.
This is going to be another branch of our business.
It's not the key that comes out of the fishbowl. Like, it's whatever car you wanted. So I love Turo. Like, that's the only way to go these days. A huge fan.
Kyle's going to buy 9 cars and park them at the airport and be like, let's do this.
There are many people who run businesses that have dozens and dozens of Turos.
Cool.
And same thing with outdoorsy people do that with RVs. So cool. Yeah, use Turo. Next time you travel, give it a shot. Turo.com, Turo app. It's pretty solid.
RVs make a lot of sense to put on there.
Yeah.
So that way you don't have to pay for storing them.
We're using, because we sold our RV and we're going to the Temecula Balloon and Wine Fest in 2 weeks, and we don't have an RV, so we're renting one. But the cool thing is we're renting, like, we're going to buy one next year. So we're kind of like, we're going to rent RVs, and we're going to rent ones that are of the type we think we're going to buy. So it'll give us a good chance. And we're not going to do enough trips to make it worth it with the baby, but we'll buy one next year, and we'll have at least had a chance to try a few out in the interim. And it's way cheaper than buying one. If you're only going to use an RV a few times a year, like, there's no sense buying one.
Really? Renting an RV is cheaper than buying one. I will write that one down as well. Renting. Cool.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show today. Again, I'm Kyle Whissel, eXp Realty here in San Diego.
I'm Bryan Koci.
We'll see you next time. Wait. Before you leave, I want to share some more tips and tricks that we're using in our business to take it to that next level. Just click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Click right here.